Dear auditorium, my name is Kusmitsch and I am the CEO and co-founder of Mindset Technologies. From my background, I'm a neuroscientist and I worked for more than 20 years in international consulting companies. But I'm going back to neuroscience, and I do this with the company Mindset Technologies that is dedicated on bringing better performance in different verticals, different businesses, and especially in sports and esports. What we do is, or let me put it like this, what we want to make something like a pulse watch for the brain. And this something like means a pulse watch that shows the pulse of your brain, that shows how you work, how attentive you are, how selective your attention is, because that gives us an idea of how fast you will be in acting and reacting in given game situations in esports. We empower peak performance in esports with this pulse watch for the brain, and we combine machine vision, neuroscience, and deep learning algorithms in order to do this. Currently, we work together with partners in esports like the Home of Esports in Switzerland or the Esports Player Foundation. We have a team in Denmark, Burst Esport. They are the championships in simulation driving. E-Sailing, another Danish company, and we work with different hardware. But what I'm going to show you today is a little bit more than the business side. It's the technology side of what we expect will change the life of many esports athletes, especially the really good one, the top athletes, a great deal. Where do we start actually? We start at the meat machine, as you call it. This is the organ that I have studied for entirely 7 years and where I did research on for more than 5 years while I was at the university in Vienna and San Diego. And it is actually our brain is wonderful because it consists of an enormous mass of neurons. It consists actually, some say 100 billion neurons. I would say I have read newer studies where they say it's 86 billion neurons in our brain. But the main important thing here is they are orchestrated by attention. Everything that happens in the brain, I mean most of the brain actually, and that's important too, has to do with the body. It's just regulating the body temperature, the breathing, eating behavior, sexuality, everything is somewhere in the brain. And you can also see if something in the brain is not working, you will have a word that means visible disorders. But to keep our attention on attention, what's important about all this energy and all the function you have in the brain is they are concentrated. You are able to go through life because you are able to focus on something. You are not distracted by everything. If you want to do something special, you can do something special. You can walk instead of looking around what's happening right and left of you and falling over the first or falling into the first pit and tripping into the first car passing your road. And this is a function of attention. And the attention is, especially in esports, for musicians, for everyone, where motoric action, fast reaction, concentration, focus on tiny details is important. Attention is the key factor. And what I always say is, if you have 86 billion neurons that are not orchestrated by attention, they create a lot of noise. But if you use them the right way, if you can concentrate, if you can focus, you can imagine how 86 billion fans cheer for your success. This is exactly what happens when you use the right tools in the right sports. Well, of course, you need the right people for that as well, but I come to this. Where are we working? We are working with sports tech applications. The applications you see here, they are currently in development, but they are very far. If we look, for instance, at the goalkeeper training, we look where the goalkeeper does look. So this is a soccer training part. We use a specialized hardware here. and we combine the two views. We combine the bird's eye view with the view of the with the camera set on the head, mounted on the head of the goalkeeper, actually before the eyes of the goalkeeper. So we see exactly what the goalkeeper sees. Real-time competition dashboards is something that we will develop pretty soon in the area of esports. But where we are currently, we are in the area of talent search, because we are using this visual input from the eyes and the gameplay, analyzing it via artificial intelligence. And we are producing a fitness report that helps actually for two purposes. One purpose is for talent search, to say, this is a very talented person, especially for this kind of esports. And another way would go to fitness report to say, okay, I see that you are, and we do this together with trainers, for instance, at the home of esports, at the premises there in Switzerland. And the trainers, they also can have a look at how they play, where the skills are, what the performance is, what the speed is, if speed accuracy is good. Because the problem often is that the speed is enormously high, but the accuracy is extremely low. So most of the keyboard combinations that look rather sophisticated, that makes you look like a wizard, are not very helpful. So what we do is we work in sports tech with the means of artificial intelligence analysis with machine learning, and also own made tools for recognition of attention, because attention here is the most critical resource. And if you go to something else like, and I said the pulse watch for the brain, if you go to the heart rate, you can easily imagine that the way how your heart works is essential, enormously essential, and I cannot superlative it enough for the performance of an athlete, a physical athlete. If you want to win the Tour de France, you have to have a very strong heart. And everything that shows the changes in your heart is very indicative of your state of mind and your physical state. And this is exactly where I want to lead you through, but also in combination with the impact that technology has on culture. Because esports is very much like every sport, like any sport. It has to make a development. It's making a development. It's a very young sport. If you think of football, probably 200 years old, actually kicking around balls much older. The same with biking, 100 years old. Tour de France, 1911, so it's pretty old. Esports is not that old. There is definitely a development that will go towards the one or the other direction. And the thing is, all of you in the auditory, you might have a chance to influence this, how it works. And I'll show you in the lecture a couple of points that I deem to be very important to get the right direction. And first of all, to get the best also from the other worlds of sport in order to integrate it in this gaming culture. And especially in Korea, I know you have a really rich gaming culture. You also like a lot baseball and football. So this is why probably I came to the idea with the next slide here. So the lecture key points for me will be the nature, strange as it seems, the nature of sports culture and how tools shape the culture, and performance boosting tech in esports, how mental training shapes performance. Let's start with the nature of sports culture. And that sounds pretty strange because nature and culture are two different things. But I come from the biological side. You know, when you're a brain scientist, you look at the meat machine and then you look at the meat machine interacts with everything else. You look at the brain, the meat machine. We know that a lot of what people do is nature. You can have a natural talent for something. If you have extremely high nerve conduction velocity, that's the speed that the signals cross your nerves, you might be, together with the functions of your brain, extremely fast in doing something. Like, for instance, playing piano. You could be one of the most supreme piano players when you have the property of playing extremely fast, for instance, well coordinated. This is just a function of your cerebellum. It's a part of the brain that makes this coordinated but very fast movements. The same is true, of course, for esports. It's same. It's pretty much also the same demand in terms of speed. But one thing is interesting here when we talk about nature. When you think Arthur Rubinstein, one of the biggest pianists worldwide, he used to play with 92, still pretty fast actually. So he didn't go to pension, he didn't retire. He played, and he did not have a loss in agility of his fingers. That's very interesting to know, because just imagine if you're a pianist, you also have a lot of stress there. And the tool is the tool that he used for his entire life. Of course, you could say in esports, maybe we don't know it because it's a young sport. Maybe there will be some players who will still play at 90, but will they play at the top level? Well, it's not easy to say actually. But one thing is for sure, you can hardly, when you do a physical sports, you could possibly not be at the top level when you're 90. There will be no winner 90 years old of the Tour de France. In esports, it's at least, when we take this pianist picture, when we take Arthur Rubinstein or some other pianist or violin players who have also to be very fast and very attentive. It's possible. It's possible. So nature interacts with sports in different ways, definitely. And one thing that interacts extremely with culture is, of course, tools. And when we look at the typical tools here, we see on this side the typical tools of a hunter. A hunter needs tools for chasing. He's just strolling through the woods days by days, while as we see here, the farmer has a totally different life because he's not strolling anywhere. He's staying in one place. And the tools that farmers use and that, of course, the hunters use is pretty different, but they also create a culture. So the tool forms the hand. The tool is formed by the hand, but on the other hand, it forms the hand and it forms the functions that go beyond it. Good technology knows that. Good technology always takes the nature as, let's say, as something like a measure for what is produced. But let us just take one example out here. If we say, when we talk culture, we talk a lot about heritage. And since esports is pretty new and the new form of culture, we have to look at how old cultures develop. Maybe that helps us to find something out. Let me just put you through two different sports that I like very much. One I like very much because I was biking myself, race biking, when I was, well, I must say 28 years younger. And the other one is I like very much because I just like cars very much, but it's racing and biking. And if you see at the development of these sports, they have a lot to do with technology. And that's the point here. They also have a different culture developed. And this is one of the things that we can learn from this is how to make, for instance, training better and also performance in difficult conditions better. Let's just start with the wonderful Tour de France. That has recently finished very late this year, I must say. And if you look at the first Tour de France here, somewhere around the turning of the century, 1910, 1911, you could see that they took it very seriously to just gather around everywhere. They just surrounded France, in fact. But what's more remarkable is that the longest Tour de France stage was 1920, and it was 482 kilometers long. And if you look at how the bikers have behaved on this stage, that's pretty different to what you see today. Just look at them here. Look at this guy here. I mean, they were drinking alcohol as well, because driving 19 hours is a long time. You need something, if it's not coca leaves like the Indians had, you need something else. And so they used nicotine. Pretty strange for a sportsman. And they, of course, had a totally different life here. And the culture they developed, in fact, was like the toughest man alive award. This is something, and you could well say, oh, that reminds me a little bit of esports, because just think of all the athletes who are sitting all the time in front of their computers, training all the time, without too much sense, probably without too much meaning behind it, what they're doing, and probably not very efficient, and that's the point. So probably they're trying to be the toughest man alive with the most mouse clicks worldwide, but it's not necessarily the most efficient way to train. And as you can see here, by the way, when it comes to training, I remember well 28 years ago. First of all, it was the time when I bought my first pulse watch that revolutionized training, because you could all of a sudden see how your heart works under conditions. You could record it and you could analyze it. So analyzing performance to the performance producing machine, the body, was possible all of a sudden. And that is something that's very interesting and that shaped biking until now, because now you have a lot of training information. You have, for instance, here, this is just one evaluation here. You see that the machines, of course, changed. The athlete doesn't smoke anymore. He's absolutely aerodynamic. That's the one thing. The other thing is also that the culture has changed to the fact that it's not the toughest man alive award anymore, because they are driving 218 kilometers. One must know that after the 400 plus kilometers, they had 1 day off. So this is not the case today. So they're driving all the time, but the culture is different. The whole culture of the event is different. And what it is today is it's a sophistication wins. If you have the best bike, if you have the best aerodynamic position, if you have the best vitals for the case, together with the right motor, so to say, then you have a really good chance to win. And this is what happens. And this has one interesting effect. I remember 28 years ago, we had 3 talents. It's a little bit like in tennis. I don't know how much in Korea you really like tennis, but in tennis you have Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer, who are dominating for many, many years. This is a sign of extreme talent. You had the same situation in sports, in biking. And the thing is, you don't have it anymore. It's not like this anymore. You have a couple of people who can win a stage, who can even win a whole race. And this comes with different training methods that put the training method a little bit more with the talent, or you can just leverage the talent much better. The same it is actually with motorsports. They didn't give a damn on safety. So safety was not an issue there. It was the last man standing. They were the heroes. And if you look at it today, they even have a complete measurement of everything. And you could see here, for instance, the heartbeat of this driver here. So it's 176. That's a lot. That's a typical adrenaline. But you can imagine that at this speed, it makes totally sense. You have a lot of data here. So again, in this area, sophistication wins. So if we take the 2 sports here that have made a serious development in this direction, we can go to esports, and we see that, for instance, measuring the heart rate is something that's pretty interesting for companies like Garmin. This is an esports edition here, and I'm not making an advertisement for Garmin here, because when I say the pulse watch for the brain, I mean something pretty different. I'll come to this soon. But what's interesting is that big companies get interested because they see it as a way, not only showing off and saying, look at this esports athlete, he has a much higher pulse rate and he will suck so much compared to this one. It's rather that you can use this information to improve the performance, to train differently, to have something like a training culture that goes beyond just playing over time. You know, oh, I've played 10 hours. Well, that's not the point. It's about playing smarter. And this is what is enabled by technology, by the right gadgets. And that is creating a culture. Why is that so? Technical support. Is it technical support, or is it rather a game changer? I would say the latter. It's a game changer. If you start with the technology, you will see that it does something. And the performance definitely changes with training, with the type of training, not only with the length of training, most of the time with the type of training. Development of training changes with the nature and specificity of training plans. You need to have good training plans too, something that is coming more and more into the minds of the coaches in esports, definitely. So it's not like if they have talents, they say just play 2 hours a day. It's like, just imagine you would be a super talent in swimming. When you're swimming, you have to go to the gym. You have to go. You have to train with weights. You have to run. You have to do gymnastic. You have to do different things. If you're only swimming, you will never be really good. And that's exactly a different culture, because the one is the I'll do it for 12 hours and I will be the best. That's the last man standing attitude. And then you have the smart one. And the smart ones, they say that training plans manage training. And the thing is, you can't manage anything that you can't measure. That means you need to measure something. You need to measure the heart rate, for instance. And what's more interesting for me, and I said in the very beginning, you have to measure also how your brain works, attention. And it's not like I'm pushing electrodes somewhere here. It must be more subtle. Otherwise, it's not taken up by the market. The valid measurement, however, is the key to optimization, efficiency, and effectiveness. And this will create a culture. And when we look at how cultures work, what do cultures consist of? First of all, you need to have peers. You need to see someone who has, as you see it, the same culture. You need to have something like a holy ground here. You see this as well in esports. The holy ground, the battlegrounds here. You need heroes, definitely. I mean, culture lives from heroes. It's I have the impression that our culture less and less likes heroes, but it's deeply rooted in us that we have heroes, and we need winners. And those winners here in esports, they show the same behavior like they would show in Formula One, because this is typically human to just its nature. It's nature that you just raise your hands and say, well, I'm the best. And if you have something and can hold it in your hands, it's much better even. So those are the things that you have in esports now, and you will have it then. You will need something like a battleground, and you need the peers, and you will also need tools, because tools shape the culture as well. And there are many tools here. There are tech tools, and I know I don't know the market for all the keyboards and mouses and monitors and seats and whatever it is, but I'm pretty much interested in the market of boosting the performance. And of course, there have been some interesting developments lately, also not only by Garmin, but also from the Swedish company Tobii, in looking into the eyes. We have a little different approach here for boosting performance in esports, and let technology interact with the culture of training smart. We use actually the functions of the eye. We can look into the eye with cameras, because from the eye we can see a lot. We can see, for instance, if someone, what do people see actually? Do they, for instance, see that there's a goal? What about the visual integration? Do they notice what's going on? What about the decision making? Do they see something is going on here? I have to act on this. And then there are some things that we can't see. They are hidden, but they are the basis of everything that's here. And the thing is, what we do, and I'll show you in the next slide how we do it. We find out how people work. That's the easiest thing. It's the question of what is the arousal in a given performance situation. If you have a performance where you are really strong here, for instance, it's really good where you have to be strong and the task is simple. It's good if you have high arousal. That means if you are like, I don't know, what is an easy task? If it's an easy task like throwing a ball at the wall at the most speed you can reach, it's better to be highly aroused. You're much faster then. But if you have a complicated task, a difficult task here, a difficult task like, for instance, yeah, it could be definitely StarCraft. It could be a typical game that you play together where you have a high communication aspect as well. So League of Legends, difficult tasks where you have divided attention, where you need divided attention, where you need decision making and multitasking. If the arousal is too high, the performance cannot be reached. It goes down. And so what we do is with different means, and I show you two means that work very well, with different methods that look into the eyes. We make a model with the help of machine learning, and we find out with those augmented reality glasses, for instance, I'll show you a picture afterwards of a typical scene, how the state of the player is. With VR, if it's VR connected, this, by the way, is one of our partners' tools as well. It's 8K resolution, 5K to 8K, so it's a pretty fancy tool. Not very much used in gaming, but we can use it for some experiments. And we use it because the eyes are part of the brain. The input coming through the eyes changes mental, cognitive, somatic brain functions, and also eye movements are altered by brain changes. So we look at the eye movements and we know how the person is ticking at the given moment, and then we can give a feedback. Also, with those glasses here, we can make something like a talent check. For instance, we can look here at the typical gaze pattern of people who are really good professional in esports and people who are not really good in esports, like the newbies here. You see one huge difference here. The professional is very much concentrated on the center because it's always standing in the right place. While, this is, by the way, this is Counter-Strike. And the newbie is also in the middle, but he has a much wider gazing pattern here. While the low-skilled amateur and the high-skilled amateur even, they have a gaze pattern that also looks differently because this low-skilled amateur is also looking on two places here. The high-skilled amateur is also looking on two places here with a really strong pattern. Here you see that the center is here, and this is almost nothing. So the professionals know where to stand, they know where to look at. This situation, this typical tasks here, this evaluation of the gaming behavior helps a lot to find out how good somebody is at the game. This is one way. Of course, there are a lot of measures that you can take out of the eyes. I'll show you just one. What's also important is to leverage the whole data power, because in esports the great thing is you have a combination of the results and the input. So we have an absolute digital simulation of something. That is wonderful. That's no other sports you have a digitalization that goes that deep. And this is also a token of culture, that it's a digital culture. That's very important here. It's easy to turn, but it depends on the hardware and the software of your brain. And one concept that you work with when you work in sports, when you work in training musicians, for instance, but also in esports, this concept has to go to esport, is the concept of flow. The concept of flow says that if you're in the middle of your, in the center, so to say, of your attention, if you're centered in yourself, time goes by very fast, actions go by smooth. You know exactly what you're doing. You have the feeling that you're flowing with the action. You don't have to think about what am I doing, you're just naturally doing something. And that is actually this zone that we can find out as well with our tools in the combination with a camera, with long-term surveillance. And then we can train, of course, together with experts, because we are not the trainers. We are producing the software and we're providing advisory, but together with trainers. And what you can do then is zone in and find the right zone where you are perfect, with the perfect reaction time, with discrimination that is perfect, and with a perception that helps you to detect what's going on the screen. What tech can do, and this is just one part here, I proposed and I promised to present a new tech, the tech that we have here, the Pulse Watch for the brain. What you can do is performance assessment. What we can do is talent search and talent fostering. This is what we do with our partners in Switzerland and Germany. And we'd also like to do this, of course, in Korea, because we see, first of all, a really strong culture. And as I said, I strongly believe that this training culture, this needs to be something that develops, but you need the right tools here. And be it the psychological skills training or the motorist skills training that will be the output, because it's not just knowing how you tick, it's also the leveraging of the mental power. That is a phenomenon that needs to be trained with super trainers, with super people around you, with perfect coaches. And this is the interesting part of the tech side. That's the human part of the tech side. So high tech, high touch. That's actually what you need. Yeah, and what I definitely suggest for you is to measure, understand what the measures mean, be it the heart rate with the Garmin, or probably sometime with our tool, how the brain ticks, but then you have to manage it. And that is something that creates also a lot of culture, because the coaches are the ones who are shaping a lot, and the team players are the ones who shape a lot. So I see this really as an exchange, culture, technology, and yeah, happy to have made this speech to you. I'm looking forward to your questions then in the live event, and thank you for your attention. Bye bye.